Good afternoon, good early morning to my
Yes.
friends over in New Zealand, Australia. Welcome to Affixify Industry Chats. We are in our 51st episode today. I am beyond excited today to have my friend Lauren, who is, I think, the coolest brand ever, the hotel marketing lady, best logo, best colors. And so, Lauren, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Lovely to be here, to be having this exciting conversation together with you, with the Affixify family, and everyone that is joining us today.
I am so excited. And, you and I have been talking for so long, and you are a partner on our platform, on our marketplace. And I'm just a huge fan. So I think we've been like talking about having you on for so long. And it's really nice that it all came together despite our time zone differences. Well, for those who are just joining the show, if you have not watched us over the last year and a half, we do a weekly show every Wednesday where we educate the hospitality industry on various topics. We have very diverse guests, everyone from hoteliers to consultants, marketing experts, vendors, you name it. We want anyone and everyone to be able to share what they do best. And Lauren, tell us a little bit before we jump in. We have a lot to talk about because we're going to touch on marketing, sales, and revenue. So there's a lot to talk about today.
Well,
Tell us
yes.
a little bit about your journey, because you were like a hotelier, now you're doing, consulting. And then tell us a little bit about your company and exactly what your expertise is. You take it away because we want to hear.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. So, yes, my name is Lorraine. I've been working in hospitality for 15 years, and I've been leading multiple marketing teams with global hotel brands from the likes of Accor, IAG, Marriott, and between New Zealand and the Maldives, two very different countries and different way of operating. It's been very exciting. And so after so many years working within the industry, I says that, okay, how can I support the industry from a different perspective? Because what I notice is that so many times there is a lack of clarity when it comes to alignment. You know, everyone is busy doing marketing, but so many times I notice there is no clear direction or clear structure. So that's where I came out with this concept of the hotel marketing lady, because majority of the general manager says, oh, go to the marketing lady, she'll fix it for you. So yeah, it always happens.
I
So I
didn't know
took
that was
that.
the background of the name. That's brilliant.
Oh yeah, of course. Like your director of sales or marketing, or your general manager says, "Oh, go to the marketing lady. She fix it for you." So that's why it says like, okay, how can I support the industry from a more strategic perspective? And that's where I decided to open my consultancy business, where basically now what I do is like I partner with independent hotel owners, mostly owners that they're opening their first hotel.
Yeah.
And what I do is like I support them through the journey, making sure that the go-to-market strategy is clear and aligning all the marketing activity with the commercial goals.
Amazing. Well, and I learned something about you because what you can do is so, I love this. You're able to do multilingual development
Yeah.
plans, right? So you can, and when you told me that, I was like, oh, this is amazing. So you can help clients too, not just, in the US or English speaking, Spanish speaking clients. I mean, you
Yes.
really can help. And I think that can be hard, hard to find. So tell us a little bit about that. You're from Spain, right? So tell us about your background.
Well, no, I speak Spanish, but I'm originally from Argentina. I've been here in New Zealand for 12 years. So yes, most of my clients, they're all like from English speaking countries. But yes, of course, I can also do in Spanish as well. And I love to support the Latin America market because I can see it's growing immensely, which is fantastic. And the reason why I mostly work with independent hotels is because I do have the structure that the big global companies have, and I bring them to independent hotels. Because what I always say to independent is, you guys have something that global hotel will never have, which is agility and flexibility.
Yeah.
So that is massive. Now, the only thing that they're lacking is a little bit of structure, and that's exactly what I do. I bring clarity and alignment,
Mm.
and that's great.
do you find that they come to you like they have a great product, right? Their property's amazing because independence, to your point, they can do so
Mm.
much creatively, but they
Yeah.
just don't know how to get the word out. I mean, is that kind of what you see typically?
100%, yes. And especially what I've noticed, majority of my clients, they're first time owners. So it means that there is a little bit of lack of understanding of how the industry works. And especially, I know there are so many things happening when you want to open a hotel, like you're investing millions on a renovation or acquiring a building or like buying the furniture, but they typically tend to leave everything that it's like commercial to the last minute. And I
Yeah,
say, I'm sorry, guys, but that's the most important thing. It's as important as securing a great location or the furniture or the guest experience.
because no one's gonna know it's there. I mean, like,
Exactly.
it's stressful. I do talk
100%.
to new owners, and I'm always amazed at the priority, you know, just like, "Oh my gosh, no, you need to be talking." I've told you this, like, you need to be talking to someone to actually, like, get the word out, but the other thing I think is so interesting, and I really wanna dive into is you and I had, you know, in our pre-show notes back and forth, talk about social media, and I think that of course, social media is very important to
Yeah.
marketing, but you make the distinction that it is not just about social media. Marketing is so much more than just posting content. So
Handsome.
like, what is your approach? So if I'm a new open, I come to you and I'm like, let's come up with a strategy. I don't know what to do. Where do you start? Because obviously it is more than just content.
Oh, 100%. I think that's great that you highlight that because I had so many so many new owners that they come to me and says, "Oh, yes, I wanted to post this on social. I wanted to have this logo, this website." And I say, "Wait, that's great, but that's the tactical side of things. Let's start with the strategic side of things first." So I
Mhm.
always say the most important thing is just to define which are your goals.
Yeah.
And I always say like there is a very costly mistake that first time owners do, especially going on the market for the first year, and they try to go for volume. They
Mhm.
trying to attract everyone, and year one is not that. Year one is just going to the market with a very clear, solid positioning, understanding what's your hotel is going to look like, what's going to make it unique, and the reasons why your ideal guest should come to you. And that
Yeah.
takes me to a second point that is very important is defining who is the ideal guest profile. Because majority of the time, they just open a hotel with heaps of opening offers, a lot of discounts, and that ends up killing the rates.
Yeah.
And it's extremely hard to recover when you start creating this mindset that, oh, this is a new hotel in town, but they just like driven by offers. So then it weakens the perception, and people don't choose to go to that property because of the value. It's because of the rate. And when you start reducing rate, it's just, you're starting a race to the bottom and you don't want to be there. So I think coming back to your question, the most important thing is like before even thinking on the channels, on the
Mhm.
content, on social, is understanding what your hotel stands for, what your commercial goals are, and defining who are your ideal guests and who are not. So then it's very clear on which channels you need to spend the most time, because once you know who your ideal guests are, you know where they spend the most time, which
Mhm.
channels they consume, and then you create a message according to that. And that's how you start connecting all the dots. And then the execution comes, the social, the website, and all different channels. But it's having a reverse engineering approach versus just focusing on the tactical side of things first.
Well, I'm thinking it makes so much sense. So I'm not a hotel marketer, but I'm like, well, this makes so much sense because, you know, if you're marketing to, I'll take myself. If you're
Yeah.
marketing to me on a business front, that's a totally different message than if I'm taking I have three boys, like we're going on a family trip, right? And so I feel like those are two different properties typically
Yeah.
that I'm going to look for. Do you find, and I'm very intrigued because yesterday on our monthly rundown webinar, we had a management company and they were sharing that, you know, a lot of owners are great at investing, but they don't really know how to run the property, right? And that's where experts like you guys come in. Do you
Mhm.
find that an owner or a brand new open even knows who their ideal guest is going to be? Or do you guys really have to figure that out together? I mean, do they have any idea?
To be very honest, from my experience, no. And it doesn't happen only with independent hotel owners, it happened with global brands as well. And that's why I wanted to always clarify, because the other day I was talking to an owner and he says like, yeah, but I'm not a global brand. And it's like, yeah, that's fantastic. Because when I tell them, yeah, that the same happened with global brands, because you have a fantastic brand identity, a concept, which is global, but then you always need to localize, because
Yes.
it's not the same when you build a global brand perspective versus when you go to the location. Like, for example, I will put the example here in New Zealand, right? It's not the same if you are in Auckland City versus if you go to the south, or the same in the Maldives, right? Same in any demographic. Like, I had a client based in San Diego, right? So we were talking specific about what that location makes it unique, and then tailored back to the property. And then
Right.
that's how you create the stories. Yeah.
And I love the storytelling part too, because we as humans obviously resonate with stories, and so you can't do any of that until you know like what kind of story am I gonna resonate with. Do
Exactly.
you find then, so you come in, you establish this, I guess I think ICP, but IGP maybe because ideal guest profile. And
Mm.
then you start to implement, okay, how does this make sense? At what point do you start aligning the sales and revenue side of it? Because you made a really good comment that you can't just lead with discount, right? I mean, that's not going to
No.
work. And we're learning
Yeah.
this. So then at what point do you take into consideration the revenue side and then, selling the property itself? How do you marry those together? Because there does have to be alignment. And from what you said at the beginning, like, oh, go talk to our marketing lady. I love that. But that's probably just like the fallback every time instead of the alignment. So, how do
Yeah.
you bring those teams together?
I think it's just to put into perspective, and based on my experience, I had the opportunity of do many pre-openings, and I was involved at different stage of the journey. Bear in mind, these were like global brands where everything meant to be structure.
Right.
Reality wasn't like that. So yes, there was a point where I was involved 3 months before opening. That was way too late. And there was 6 months, a year or so. So when I work now with my consultant clients, I always say it's like, when are you opening? If you're not less than, I mean, if you're less than 12 months, that's
Mhm.
hard. If you are 12 months or plus, that's even better. But ideally is to start thinking on all your commercial and marketing foundations 1 year before opening
Yes.
the door. Reason why is there's so many things that will happen, like unexpected delays. It always going to happen, especially if you're going through construction, either like building or renovation. It always happens. Now, the other thing as well, everything is time, right? So one thing is the operation side of things, that it will take time to get it done. But when it comes to the commercial side of things, you need to, like I said, meet with the owner. I didn't understand what's the why behind that property. And then you start building your ideal guest profile. Then you need to define your positioning. That's
Right.
an exercise. It's not going to happen overnight, right? And then
Yes.
you need to try engaging different agencies as well. You need to create like all the visual side of things, like collaterals, like on property communications. Then, of course, the digital side of things. But there's also like processes, like, for example, the tech stack, right? And that's something that I love from Affixify,
I'm like,
because to
thank
me,
you.
honestly, I love it, because to me, that I've always been working with global brands, I never had to care about the tech side because it was sorted. Now
Right.
with my independent clients, that's something that I always bring at early in the conversation, because sometimes they tend to say, "Oh yeah, I want to go with the cheapest CRM or the cheapest booking engine," and it's just like, no, 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 no. That's the most expensive mistake, because
Yes.
it's not an IT thing. It is actually related to your revenue strategy. Because say that if you have a booking engine, for those that are new to the industry, booking engine is when you click on book your
You
room,
booked
that's what happened
it's a
to make
worthwhile
you book the room.
explanation. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So I think like if you go with the cheap system, then it doesn't let you create ancillary revenue, or it doesn't let you create different packages or offers. Then you're leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
And also, if it doesn't give you the flexibility to get as much data as possible from your guests, you're also leaving money on the table, because you need to start retaining those clients, right?
Yeah.
So I think like having the right selection of the tools and the skills as well. Because the other day I was talking with another owner, and then I was saying, well, this is the time to bring a revenue expert, which is not me. I'm a strategist, so I
Yeah.
can align
Yeah.
everything. When it comes to revenue, it's very important that you have the right person, that they can help you set up the right rate, because otherwise you would suffer, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
So that is very important, especially for first time owners, to make sure that they partner with people that understand the industry in and out. And
Yeah.
that's where they're going to save a lot of money in unnecessary mistakes, because
Yeah.
that's what you pay. You pay for the expertise, right? And just to avoid silly mistakes, you know. But I think, like, coming back to your question, I would say at least 12 months before opening, that would be the ideal situation. Now,
Mm.
I do have some owners that they're opening in the next 9 months, and we are working through that process. It is tight,
Yeah.
but it is doable anyways. But I
Yeah.
wouldn't go less than that, because then just the tech selection, it takes time. Then you need to see the trial, and then you need to develop a website, you know. So
Mhm.
it's very important to allocate time. So you don't want to be rushing to the last minute, you know, to
Yeah.
get a website up and running. So I think it's also give time as well to properly plan and align, and also to train the team as well, right? The way I work is like I support, for example, internal teams, or I work with different vendors as well. So you need to, you know, you need to put up your team in place as well, and it takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said something that resonates with me a lot, which is, so prior to Affixify, I had my own consulting company. And I think a lot of times now it is becoming more common, but owners don't want to spend the money up front to hire an expert because it's like, oh, I don't know, that's a lot of money. But it's like, to your point, you're actually going to pay a lot more in the long run if you miss these steps. And I always
100%.
find it interesting that, and I don't even think, it's whether you own a hotel or you're a doctor opening your own office, whatever it is, like, people have to find you somehow. And so you don't want to open the doors and it's crickets. Like, you want to get the awareness out. And I always think about that, like, that takes some time and investment, and you're going to see the ROI from that, like, immediately, And I do think fractional work, just to kind of plug it because it is so important, it's a benefit to everybody, because then they don't have to hire a full-time person necessarily. They get people like you who have been on property and in all kinds of scenarios to help them. And there's like a clear ROI. So I don't benefit from saying that. I'm just genuinely telling our audience, like, if you are resistant to hiring out fractional, CMOs, things like that, like you, I think it's such a benefit, and your ROI is going to be pretty immediate, and you don't have to budget for, salary and benefits. So
And I think that's, yeah, and I think that's the best part, that it didn't exist a few years ago, honestly. It's like, so you don't need to think on a full-time hire, because you're getting so many years of expertise, which is literally plug and play.
yeah,
And and that's why I also support some of the brands I've worked with before as well, because yes, I know how they work. So it's easy. They don't need to do an onboarding. And the same happened with the independent hotel owners. I just bring structure that otherwise they would never get access to, the
yeah,
playbook that, global hotel brands have,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. I mean, what you bring to the table, it's amazing. And I'm curious to
Mhm.
hear, so talk to me a little bit about having the right experience, and a few things come to mind, so you can share on this. But, we talked about in the pre-notes that you got to have industry knowledge in order for this to work, or you have to hire the right people, like we're just talking about with industry knowledge. But also, just out of curiosity, if a hotel owner doesn't, which is okay, maybe they come from a different background and this is an investment
Mhm.
for them. How do they go about making sure they at least are surrounded by people with that knowledge? And then I want to ask a follow-up, but we'll stop on, like, if someone owns one and now they're trying to do another property. But starting with a brand new owner, what would you tell them? Let's say they don't have the experience. How would they source that to make sure that they have the right knowledge to make this thing a success?
I think, like, because I love the industry and I love teaching, I always take the whole process as an educational process. And people can see through, for example, on LinkedIn or through my email marketing, I try to educate, because let's be honest, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
right? It is a new industry, and so many times it's the first time investment.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that you're talking to the right people that can help you achieve your goals faster and do as less mistakes as possible. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you're not going to make mistake. Of
Yeah.
course, it always happen, right? But it's just to mitigate it.
Mhm.
Like, for example, the main focus of marketing that we discussed in the beginning is not, creating more content on social. It's actually defining the positioning. And if
Mhm.
you don't have a positioning, and then if you don't have the right rate strategy in place, and if you don't know who you're going to be competing with, then you're just going to copy pasting what
Yeah.
your next door hotel is doing. And plus, if you add the AI era that we are living, it's like so many times I think, oh, that's fine. I don't need a marketer. I go to ChatGPT and get it done. And I say, well, good luck. Because yes, of course,
Good.
anyone can create you with
Yeah.
AI a great marketing strategy. Now, what you cannot get is the industry knowledge. How you're going to implement it? What's going to happen when you have X, Y, Z situations, right?
Yeah.
Like especially on a pre-opening, there are so many moving parts that
Yeah.
needs to be aligned, and there's specific timing. And it reminds me to a recent project that I had a few months ago. It was as a hotel in the States that reached out to me in year 2, because the problem is they went to market, no clear positioning, no marketing, no
Yep.
PR. And of
Yeah.
course, what was the result? Year 2, they have a very stagnant rate, and they
Yeah.
wanted to increase. Now, the guests that they were coming to the property, they couldn't see the value, and they would say, why are you charging me this? And I say,
Wow.
well, that's very common when you go to market without a clear positioning, without having a clear understanding who your ideal guests are, and they don't see value. So
Yeah.
that's why positioning is essential on year 1. And then the same with PR. PR is not going to happen overnight. And
Mhm.
also, why do you want to, what are you going to give the PR agencies to talk
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
Right? And
Right.
so many times I have owners that say, I want to be every month in the media. And I says, first of all, why?
Yeah.
Second of all, what's your budget? And third, what's the
Yeah.
story?
Always budget.
Because if you don't have the story, and I saw this very often in the Maldives, right? It is a very saturated market. So it's very hard to get media coverage, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
everyone is doing everything. But if you don't have a clear structure in terms of which are the stories and what are the experiences that's going to make you, different from your competitor, then the rest is just falling apart. And the
Yeah.
reason why I always emphasize on the storytelling and the positioning and the experiences is because that is going to have a direct impact on your rate.
Yeah.
The better
Absolutely.
experiences they have, it's just not about service alone. And don't get me wrong, service is super important because that's one of the
Right.
main reasons why people come back to the property. But if you cannot show value,
Yeah.
then you turn up being a commodity, and you don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah, and a few things come to my mind. I had Jeremy Wells on the show. He's pretty active on LinkedIn. He's a hotel owner and has an agency, but they do more like websites and things like that. But he talked about how in his hotels they are very intentional that if you see it in the marketing, you're going to have that delivered on property because they want to make sure there's alignment between what you see and then what you get, right? And I always thought that was a really good point. But then the other thing that I'm just thinking about as you're talking is what about in a really competitive environment, right? Like what you're saying matters so much because otherwise I fear that the hotel is just going to get lost in who's the lowest rate. Like if I go, I'm just thinking of an example. You go to New York, you're going to have every hotel imaginable. What's going to really set you apart in that market? Otherwise, is that the case? Like this is just what I'm assuming. You're just going to fall in line with everybody else and rates are going to fluctuate based on that versus the actual experience and value that you're giving as a
100%.
property. Why are you coming to New
100%.
York, right? Like, why are you visiting?
Exactly. And especially now with AI, is like, I love it as a support,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I think like the most important opportunity that I see nowadays is differentiation.
Yeah.
What makes your property unique? Because now if you start reading like landing pages, different websites, different email marketing, everything sounds exactly the same. So
Yes.
that's why it's so important. Even when was it? A couple of weeks ago, I was talking with an owner. I said, okay, now it's time to work with a copywriter. And I was like, why? Can I not do it with ChatGPT? And she's like, no, because it's a new brand. It doesn't exist. You don't have a tone of voice.
Yeah.
So you're gonna end up doing like a cookie cutter, copy paste from everyone. And you wanted to make sure that your tone of voice is what sets you apart. The way
Yeah.
that you talk to your guests,
Yeah.
the way that you welcome guests into the property, into social media, into website, different channels. I think it's very important because, like I said, that has a direct impact on your long-term positioning, therefore in your rate as well, and the position in the market. That's very important.
And now, unfortunately, AI copywriting is so obvious. And I mean, I've stopped using any AI for any help with LinkedIn and at first it was a great tool, right? But now
Mm,
I think we scroll, whether it's websites, collateral, LinkedIn posts, it's pretty clear when someone's using that. And I think it's a great tool, but I agree with you. Like you need a real copywriter, someone that has emotion. I think we forget AI doesn't have emotion behind it. They're not a soul. So they don't know the
exactly.
experience. They've never been to the Maldives, right? Like, I mean, and so I agree with you. I support that. And what I'm just envisioning is a new owner, like at a round table with all these experts helping to be successful. And then that way, when you do go to market, it sounds like you're much more set up for success because I hear a lot of consultants say, whether it's technology or marketing, they get hoteliers that come back and say, oh, we did it wrong. Now you got to help us clean it up. We want to avoid that situation if we can.
100%. Yeah, it happens and it's very common. And like I said, it doesn't only happen to independents, it also happened to global hotel brands
Yes.
as well. And
Yes.
I've been there before, which is great. So it's
Mhm.
just to have a wider perspective. It's not just independents. And also something that I see very common is like so many times you have all different teams working in silo. So you have your revenue team with one goal, then you have your sales. So your revenue team is trying to push rate, your sales team is driving offers, and your marketing team is working with influencers. Your operational team is sorting out the guest problem, but no one have a clear direction on what does the hotel stand for and what does success look like.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a clear direction and a clear execution, will just not happen.
Mm.
So you wanted to make sure that that alignment is in place from day one,
Yeah.
because otherwise it will take time, of course, to do the reverse engineering, and also it will be very expensive. It doesn't mean that it cannot be done. Like I said, this was a
Mhm.
positioning project that I've done for a hotel in year 2. Same happened in the Maldives, but it will take time because when there is a perception on
Yeah.
the guest mind, similar happened with repositionings, right? I've done
Yeah.
repositioning here in New Zealand, and it took a good 2 years.
Oh my gosh. And you're I mean, that's a
No,
huge yeah, it's a huge time frame. No. And I do have one question. So I ask every guest this. I never put it in the notes because I kind of want it to be organic, but um what has your aha moment been? So along your journey, have you had an aha moment where you're like something clicks or this is what we're doing wrong or this is, where has that been for you? Does anything come to mind?
yes, that's a great question.
It's not it's
Uh, I think no, I think it's been great now reflecting back from when I did my first pre-opening in the Maldives, that I was new to a destination. I was new to the opening. I was young. I had no idea what I was doing. Reflecting back on that, there is one main word that stick in my mind, which is clarity and alignment.
love it.
Because like I said, so many times I saw all the departments working in silos, uh, but then I saw the results when everyone is singing the same song. So, and that was inspired me to create my clarity framework,
Yeah.
because that's what I've noticed. It's like, okay, what have I learned that I can put it in a framework that is easy to implement for independent hotels or for any global hotel brands, that they know exactly what to do and they
Yeah.
don't need to go through 15 years, to
Yeah.
hustle it. It's like to get it easier, get it done, make it simple. So I
Mm,
think, yeah, my main takeaway would be, yes, clarity.
yeah.
Typically, it always seems that the hotel is a very complex structure, which it is, but having clarity makes things
Yeah.
simpler, not easier, but
Yeah.
it's simpler. So you know what you need to do, when, and how. I
Yeah.
think probably, I don't know if I answer your question,
That's
but I think
perfect.
clarity for me is key.
I love it. And is this framework something that that a hotelier gets when they hire the hotel marketing lady to come in, or is this something they can even buy from
Yeah.
you, like a guide? Tell me about that framework.
Yeah, 100%. So basically what I do is like before deciding to partner up with a hotel, what we do is a strategic clarity session where I get to know the hotel a little bit more. And I do have a complementary strategic marketing diagnostic as well, which is a small part of the framework so they can actually self-assess themselves,
Yeah.
see where they are. So 20 thought-provoking questions. They can download it for free and they can see where they are. Then when we have this call, I go through a couple of questions, but basically based on that, then we find, okay, is it the right time to partner up? Can I help you? Because I always try to be very transparent. And I say, if you're opening your hotel in 3 months, I'm sorry, I cannot help you. My hands are tied. But depending on the scope of work on the project, then we decide to move forward. Now, this framework is super simple. It's like what we've been discussing so far. It's just aligning your commercial goals, what your ideal guest profile with your positioning, with your channels, and then measuring. Because so many times I see that there's a lack of understanding what the KPIs are. So
Right.
basically, when we work together, we set up the strategy first, and then we go through the framework, and then I support to lead the implementation throughout the process.
Amazing. I'm thinking the way you're approaching it is such a no-brainer because it's worth everyone's time just to take, go through those 20 questions. Look,
100%.
we know not everyone, I don't have a marketing brain like you do. So I'm like, it makes so much sense. And I absolutely love it. And for those tuning in now or on YouTube or, seeing clips of this later, you can connect with Lorene through Affixify. So go through, you can find her. We'd be so happy to introduce you. Of course, you're very active on LinkedIn too, and you've become quite a LinkedIn influencer. So we can follow you there as well. Anywhere else that our audience can find you?
Yes, they can also come to my website, which is super simple, is thehotelmarketinglady.com, or they can also come to my LinkedIn. That's, like you said, I'm super active in there, responding DMs, creating a lot of content and supporting the community of hoteliers around the world. And like I said, I work with international clients. So even though I'm in New Zealand, I have clients around the world. So I'm always happy to be part of these very exciting projects. And I know it is a big investment for a first-time owner to have the first asset. And that's why I always try to bring the time back, which is the most important. Money comes and go, but time cannot come back. So I always try to bring clarity so they can enjoy the process, because so many times it's very stressful. And I says, yes, it will be stressful, but at least I'm supporting them to have like one person taking care of all the marketing side of things and bringing clarity.
I love it. Money comes and goes, but you can't get time back. I'm going to write it on my desk, put it somewhere around me. Well, thank you for joining us. It's just my honor to have you on the show. You have brought
Thank
so much
you.
good education today. I absolutely love this conversation. And so for those tuning in or want to share this, because there's so much good information here, we will have the episode on YouTube within the next week. Also, be sure you're signed up for the Affixify newsletter because we'll feature this there as well. And then be back next week. So we will be hosting Steve Schatzberger of Evolve Hospitality. He specializes in asset management and new development consulting on the business tech side. So we will talk to him about all things asset management, making sure you're getting the ROI out of your investment. So kind of a nice lead in from the marketing side to the financial side. And so tune in next week at 12 o'clock Central with Steve Schatzberger. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you guys next week.
Thank you so much. Bye.